Hey everyone, welcome to a new episode of WeighOut Wednesday. My name is Dr. Ashley Southard, and I'm coming to you from Scottsdale, Arizona, where I am the site director and clinical therapist at a New Beginning Outpatient Treatment Center, and also the co-founder and program director of the Healthy Way Out Emotional and Binge Eating Weight Loss Program. Now, this month, we're talking about how to survive common summertime stressors that might leave you feeling a little more vulnerable and overwhelmed and turning to food for comfort. And today I want to talk about a very common stressor in summertime, which is increased family time. Now, there's many ways that we can experience increased family time in the summer. Certainly, many of us go on family vacations where we're all getting in the car or getting on a plane and heading somewhere together, spending a lot of time together in close quarters. There's family reunions that a lot of families enjoy in the summertime. And then, of course, there's just the increased time at home, oftentimes because maybe the kids are out of school and they're not doing all of their normal activities. Maybe your colleagues are out on vacation and so your workload is less and maybe you're finding more time at home. But regardless, most of us tend to experience increased family time around this time of year. Now, by acknowledging that this can be very stressful is in no way saying that this is necessarily a bad thing. Certainly, spending time with your family can be a very lovely and heartwarming experience for many people. But even the best of times can also be stressful, right? So I thought it would be helpful for us to talk about some of the common experiences that people can have when they have this increased family time that can maybe lead them to want to turn to food as a way to cope. And hopefully some of these will resonate with you as well. And I'll be offering some tips for what you can do to help take care of yourself emotionally so that you don't then feel like you need to turn to food to take care of yourself. Okay, so let's get started. So the first common stressor that I hear a lot of people struggle with when they're on family vacations and spending a lot of extra time with their family is they start to feel like they don't really have enough quality time for themselves. They don't have enough quiet time or downtime. And when you're spending a lot more time with family members, whether it's sitting on the couch talking or touring a new city, or visiting the family's cabin, this constant interaction or exposure to others and interactions with others can leave you feeling very emotionally depleted, sometimes overstimulated, overwhelmed, frustrated, angry, sad. It can be a very emotional experience and a very exhausting experience. That's normal even when the interactions are really good. So we want to be really aware of this and notice what is your need for quiet time and downtime. We all have different levels of need when it comes to that, but truly everybody needs that to some degree. So your task is to identify how much downtime do you typically need in a day, especially when you are kind of on all the time with your family. So I really want you to think about what that might be like for you. Would that be 10 minutes a day, maybe 30 minutes a day, maybe 2 hours a day, maybe 6 hours a day? What is your need for having that quiet time and that downtime to let your system unwind and breathe a little bit? So I want you to think about how much time you think you might need and then be very deliberate in carving out that time while you are with the family, okay? So this could be very small things like taking a longer than normal shower, all right? This could be something like offering to go pick up coffee for everyone just so that you can have 10 minutes in the car by yourself. This could be bringing headphones with you and putting them on so that you can just kind of let the world fall away for a little bit and you're not plugged in and paying attention. This could also be taking a gentle walk by yourself. So there's lots of different ways that you can build in that quiet time or downtime, but the key is to actually build it in, to make sure it happens. And if this isn't something that you typically do, you may actually want to put a little reminder on your phone while you're on this vacation or spending this time with your family so that you are reminded to do that for yourself. Because if you don't, and you get into that space where you're feeling overstimulated and overwhelmed and emotional and exhausted, that is the perfect setup for emotional and binge eating. So take care of yourself, carve out that quiet time, and I suspect you'll feel a lot more in control of yourself and less likely to turn to food. The second common stressor that a lot of people will experience while they're spending time with their family is unfortunately exposure to distressing or conflictual interactions amongst the family. Now, you may find yourself a part of those conflictual interactions, and or you may find yourself observing those conflictual interactions between others. But as most of us have experienced, sometimes families don't get along, even families that love each other, even families that really enjoy each other's company. Sometimes it's just stressful and it can get a little out of hand. Now, in some families, it can really get out of hand. There can be intense arguing, there can be violence, there can be name calling. Maybe people are turning to substances to deal with the stress, like drugs or alcohol, and they're getting drunk and they're saying things while they're drunk. So the conflict and the distress can get very intense, and that can be incredibly stressful to your system, of course, setting you up to maybe need to turn to food for that soothing or comfort. So, what can you do instead? Well, first off, I would recommend putting together an exit plan for yourself if and when the family interactions get conflictual or really stressful for you. So, an exit strategy will be anything that will allow you the freedom to get away from those interactions. So, this could be something like having your own hotel room when you go on that family vacation. Rather than all of you staying in one room, maybe you need to have your own hotel room so that if and when things get out of hand, you have your own space to go to. Maybe this is having your own rental car. A lot of times, if you don't have your own car, you can't get away. And so that can leave you feeling very trapped and helpless, which can be a very scary and distressing experience for your system. So really consider having your own hotel room, having your own car so that you can get away. If that's not an option, make sure you know the public transportation options for the space that you're staying in if you're in a new city. Certainly make sure that you have ride-sharing apps on your phone like Lyft or Uber so that you can call a car if needed. The other thing I would suggest is always have someone identified that you can call if things start to get out of hand and you need to talk to someone. This could be a trusted friend. This could be a family member that you're really close with who understands the family dynamics. This could be a therapist that you're working with who knows the family dynamics, but somebody that you can have on standby who can be available to talk to you if things start to get out of hand. So if the family erupts into arguing and bickering and name calling, you can get up, you can go to your own hotel room and you can call your friend and talk to them about what's going on. Or you can get in your own rental car and go for a drive and get some space and maybe call a friend. You've got to be able to get away so that you feel safe, and you've got to be able to process and express what is going on and do that with somebody who's trusted and safe. So if distress and conflict are things that tend to erupt in your family when you guys spend time together, put together your exit strategy and make sure you have that person on standby who can be available to you if and when you need them. And let them know ahead of time, hey, I'm going to be going on this family vacation. You know how it goes sometimes in our family, things can get kind of out of line. This is going to be my plan for keeping myself safe, and I may call you. Would that be okay? So that this person knows if you call and they're able to pick up, they want to pick up because they know that you're in need, okay? All right, so a third common stressor that many emotional and binge eaters struggle with as they are anticipating and preparing for increased time with family is the comments and the remarks about the observable changes in their weight. If you are like so many emotional and binge eaters that we work with here at our program, you may be caught in that vicious cycle of dieting and then binge eating, and then dieting and then binge eating. And as a result of this overeating, undereating cycle, your weight probably fluctuates quite a bit. And we call this yo-yo dieting. And your weight goes up and then it goes down and then it goes up and then it goes down. And so for a lot of people who are trapped in this vicious cycle of dieting and binge eating, they feel a lot of stress then about seeing people that maybe they haven't seen in a while because their weight may be different. And so maybe your weight is higher this year than it was last year, maybe it's lower this year than it was last year, but regardless, if there are weight changes, you may be feeling stress about other people noticing that and then maybe making comments to you or to someone else behind your back. So what do you do about this? Well, there's a couple of different things that you can do if you're in this situation. First thing is identify who you think may make comments or pass judgment about your weight. Usually people have a sense of who in the family is going to be judgmental and who in the family is going to be kind and respectful and who in the family is just going to be silent and not say anything at all. And once you identify those people who you anticipate being judgmental, maybe making a comment that would be upsetting to you, then I want you to consider, is this someone that you think you could call up ahead of time and talk to them about your concerns prior to you guys getting together? So if you're worried that grandma is going to notice the change in your weight and she's going to make some very public comment and that would be so embarrassing to you, could you call up grandma and say, hey grandma, I wanted to give you a heads up. You know, my weight has fluctuated and I know in the past sometimes you've made comments about that and that's been very difficult for me. So I just wanted to see if maybe you could not make those comments when we see each other this time. That would really help me feel more at ease. So consider if that is a conversation you might be able to have with the person or persons that you anticipate making comments or making some type of judgmental remarks. The second thing that you can do is to prepare a friendly but firm response for when people do make comments. So come prepared, because in that moment when people say something, it's stressful to your system. And in that moment, your brain doesn't work very well, right? So that part of our brain that's able to come up with a response, it actually goes offline in moments of stress. And we just kind of go into reflexive mode. And so we tend to, be really quiet and just not say anything at all. We tend to just want to get the heck out of there. And later on, we think about it and go, darn it, I wish I would have said X, Y, and Z. So if that's ever happened to you, you know what I'm talking about. And so the way that we combat that is we anticipate the stress that we might experience and we prepare for it so that if and when it happens, it's actually not as stressful and it doesn't catch us off guard. And our brain is able to stay online and we're actually able to deliver a firm but friendly comment or response to this family member's remarks. So come up with a couple of things that you could say in response to somebody commenting on your body or your weight. And these could be very simple things like, I'd appreciate it if you please not say that. Or that makes me uncomfortable when you say that. So they don't need to be elaborate. They don't need to be real fancy. Just something very simple that lets that person know what they're doing and saying is not okay with you. All right? Now, if those first two recommendations feel a little hard, or maybe you want to back up in addition to those, then another thing I would suggest is identify somebody who's going to be with you during this family time who you really feel emotionally safe with and who you feel has your back. So who could you talk to ahead of time and let them know that you're concerned grandma's going to make that comment about your weight? And could they stay close to you when grandma's around? Could they step in if grandma starts to go in and make comments about your weight and you're not able to use your voice? Could they speak up on your behalf? Could they ask grandma to please not make those comments? Could they even come up with an excuse to pull you out of that interaction? Hey, why don't you come with me into the kitchen and help me get the salad ready? Okay, so you want to have that person who can be kind of your go-to person during this family time. They know what's going on, they know what your concerns are, and they can be there as a support and a defense for you if and when you need that. Okay. The last thing I would recommend relative to this situation is to be very strategic about your exposure to these people you've identified as potentially being hurtful or judgmental regarding your weight. And what I mean by being strategic about your exposure is really think through, how can you maybe limit their opportunities to be able to say something hurtful to you? So, for example, if you know that at this family reunion there's going to be a big family dinner on Friday night, and grandma is the one that you're really concerned is going to start saying something, then it would be really wise for you to sit at a far end of the table away from grandma so that she's not near you during mealtime, noticing what you're doing with your food and making comments on it. So it's all about being very strategic about where you are in your physical space relative to these people that you don't feel safe with, and protecting yourself as much as you can. You may also want to consider having your go-to person or your safe person sitting next to you so that if grandma chimes in and makes a comment about your weight, that person could also support you. Okay? So talk to them ahead of time if you can. Prepare your friendly but firm response to have in your back pocket. Identify a safe person that you can have by your side throughout the family time, and then make sure that you're strategic about your exposure to those people who cause you distress. The final stressor that I want to talk about that so many of my clients struggle with when they are spending time with their family of origin, meaning their parents, their siblings, aunts, uncles, and grandparents, is they find themselves getting lost in the childhood role that they fulfilled when they were young. And for many people who struggle with emotional and binge eating, they grew up being the good boys and the good girls. They grew up being the pleasers and the peacekeepers in the family, the ones who were compliant and didn't give mom or dad any problems. So I don't know if this resonates with you, but for a lot of the clients that I work with, that is very much the role that they found themselves in when they were young children. And when they spend time with their family of origin today, even though they're grown and even though things are different, they can find themselves very quickly on a subconscious level falling right back into that good girl or good boy role within the family system. So here you are maybe on family vacation, and you are 45 years old and you have your own family now and you have a successful job and you're living a wonderful adult life. And yet when you're spending time with mom and dad and brother and aunt and uncle and grandma, you find yourself right back in that role as maybe a 7-year-old who just wants to keep everyone happy, who doesn't speak up when she feels differently than everyone else in the family, who doesn't say what she wants or needs because she's afraid that would upset the apple cart. So it's very, very important to acknowledge that if this is something you do, you want to be able to identify that process and pattern within yourself, and then be very deliberate about intentionally stepping out of that childhood role. Now, if you go back into your history, it probably makes a ton of sense why you would have become the good girl or the good boy, why you would become the peacemaker or the compliant child. There were probably a lot of things going on in your past that that strategy worked very well to protect you or maybe minimize the harm that you would experience. But that strategy doesn't work very well anymore when you're an adult and you are able to use your voice and you are able to say what you need and protect yourself. If you default back into that young role where you don't have a voice and you don't say what you want or need, then you're going to find yourself in that family dynamic where you might feel helpless and powerless. Maybe you feel victimized, maybe you feel unimportant, maybe you feel like you don't matter, and of course that's going to be a huge breeding ground for eventual emotional and binge eating. So if this resonates with you, identify what your childhood role was in your family of origin, and then identify how that shows up today when you spend time with your family. Do you suddenly not have any emotions? Do you suddenly not have a voice? Do you not say anything that would upset mom or dad or grandma or brother? How does that show up? And then how can you be more authentic in those interactions as your adult who doesn't have to be that good girl or good boy anymore? So encourage yourself to speak up, to speak what's on your mind when you're with your family, to digress from, how the family is feeling or thinking. If you feel differently, give yourself permission to say that. And most importantly, if things get uncomfortable, it's okay. You are an adult now. You are safe. You can use your exit strategy to leave those unhealthy dynamics. You do not have to stay in this situation anymore. It's not your job to keep the peace for the family. It's everyone's job to keep the peace within themselves, be kind and respectful adults. If they can't do that, you can leave or you can speak up, okay? So we really want to empower that healthy adult part of us that has a voice, that has choice, and that can take care of ourselves and not fall back into that childhood role where we didn't have a voice and we didn't have power and we didn't have choice, okay? All right, so those are some tips that I hope will help you navigate some upcoming family vacations or reunions or just gatherings where you may find yourself feeling stressed, overwhelmed, and maybe then wanting to turn to food as a way to cope with all of those emotions. All right? Hopefully your family time will also be a very joyful time where you capture wonderful, beautiful memories and you enjoy each other's company. So I will be back here next week for a final conversation about another summertime stressor. In the meantime, have a wonderful week. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.